In this course, we'll be navigating reference skills for the humanities, reference resources in the humanities and arts, and the socioeconomic and political context in which the humanities must exist, thrive, and shift around. So this week, we'll be looking at defining the humanities, the job of the librarian in the humanities, the national and worldwide shift in the humanities that's happened over the past couple decades, and juggling the roles, the various roles, and wearing the different hats of a humanities librarian. So, reference librarians in the humanities fields find themselves in a unique situation of information service. Just like many librarians, they must constantly adapt to new information skills, resources, and technologies, and they must also think of the particular population and patron that they're working with. To be successful in humanities reference services, librarians have to know a broad range of fields that fall within the humanities, as well as the context of the development and present condition of the humanities. So, historically, the humanities has developed in a classical sense of study of human culture, literature, secular studies, and the studies of Latin and Greek languages. But in the 19th century, the field went on to develop in the study that was outside of the natural sciences. So it really focused in on these various fields of arts and literature and music. In the 20th century, the field dealt with more of the social phenomenons rather than the natural world that the sciences was exploring. And finally, in the later 20th century, the field was a dedicated and disciplined field dedicated to the development of verbal, perceptual, and imaginative skills needed to understanding the human experience. A unique element of the humanities is that it does not claim hard truths, as the science fields might have previously been pursuing and specifically use scientific methods for. The humanities are much more about the connection between the humanities and the sciences, and humans and the world around them. So, for librarians, the humanities is a field in which they are concerned with individual performance, human behaviors, cultural artifacts, and the creative process. These disciplines, and the disciplines often impacted by the humanities, are generally known as specifically philosophy, religion, language, linguistics, literature, the performing arts, and the visual arts. For the purpose of this semester and sort of more generally, history is often placed in the social sciences. And librarians find themselves working in these particular fields and more, including with comics, graphic novels, cultural studies, and critical theory, and this shifting and growing field known as the digital humanities. Library and information studies approaches the scholarship of the humanities as often independent and individualistic. So, unlike the social sciences, a humanist scholar is often doing independent and individual work. However, there's a lot of collaboration in fields such as the arts, music, theater, and dance. And so, this is both, the humanities are both highly individualistic and highly collaborative. Part of this class is understanding the context of librarianship in the humanities, which means looking at the shifting landscape of the humanities in education in the United States and globally. For librarians and educators, the humanities goes beyond the topics and fields themselves and into a political context, and a shift into activism for the need for the humanities in our education and our society. So we're going to be reading this text by Martha Nussbaum. Nussbaum labels the shift in of the humanities as a silent crisis, though it's certainly growing more loudly recently as we start to see the impacts of the de-emphasis on the humanities. Nussbaum identifies the humanities as crucial for the stability and growth of a democratic country and society, and for the individual human in understanding the world around them through a literate and educated lens. Nussbaum has found that the shift away from the humanities has been largely economic, that there's been an intentional turn towards technology and the sciences in order to focus on economic growth. Now, Nussbaum does not place her work against the science-based fields, and neither do we, but rather she argues that between an education for profit-making and an education for a more inclusive type of citizenship, Nussbaum says, I shall try to show how the humanities and arts are crucial both in primary, secondary, and in university education, drawing examples from a range of different stages and levels. In this class, we're going to prioritize the skills and resources necessary for a humanities librarian, but also the context in which the humanities librarian works. This means understanding the socioeconomic framework that the humanities finds itself in today, and the shifting landscape in this question of what is the humanities. Librarians must go beyond presenting neutral information to their patrons and become active advocates for topics in the humanities in our education and everyday lives as citizens of a democratic society. And part of this conversation is also understanding the emerging field of the digital humanities. So, understanding what it is and how librarians fit in to this shifting field, which often bridges the STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and humanities fields together. For librarians, there have been a number of resources developed around information services in the humanities. There's the ACRL, a nonprofit organization that works to bring together research libraries, librarians, and students for supporting teaching, research, scholarship, and communication. There's NEH, the National Endowment of the Humanities. This is an independent federal agency created in 1965. It's one of the largest funders of humanities programs in the United States. There's the National Endowment for the Arts. This is an independent federal agency that funds, promotes, and strengthens the creative capacity of our communities by providing all Americans with diverse opportunities for arts participation. There's the ACLS, the American Council of Learned Societies, a nonprofit that works to advance the field of humanistic studies and the social sciences. Here's the group for Humanities, which keeps an active reference list to advocates for the humanities. There's SPARC, the Scholarly Publishing and Academic Resource Coalition. This is an international alliance of academic and research libraries. So consider joining one of these organizations. Right now, you'll get a discount on memberships because you're a student, so please take advantage of this. You can also follow conversations such as #CritLib on Twitter, which often circle around this idea of librarianship and critical theory and critical applications. You can follow For Humanities on Twitter to keep up to date on activism for the humanities. And you can join ACRL with a student membership, or you can consider volunteering on an ALA committee. Consider joining these committees and just jumping in, maybe before you necessarily feel fully prepared, because you will learn just from being a part of these communities. You'll have sort of active engagement with other professionals who are based in the humanities.